Alright, so today I will begin with a reading. The reading will be The Hobbit. I will be reading this book in the voice of Arnold Schwarzenegger, so I hope you please enjoy. Chapter 1. In the hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole, filled with the ends of worms and an oozy smell, nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole, with nothing in it to sit down on or yet a dry, bare, sandy hole with nothing to sit on down or to eat. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. It had a perfectly round door, like a porthole, painted green, with a shiny yellow brass knob in the exact middle. The door opened on to a tube-shaped hall like a tunnel. A very formidable tunnel without smoke, with paneled walls and floors tiled and carpeted, providing with polished chairs and lots of pegs for hats and coats. The hobbits was fond of visitors. The tunnel wound on and on, going fairly, but not quite straight, into the side of the hill. The hill, as all people for many miles round called it, and many little round doors opened out of it. First, on one door, there was another. Now going upstairs for the hobbit, bedrooms, bathrooms, cellars, pantries, lots of these, wardrobes. He had whole rooms devoted to clothes, kitchens, dining rooms, and all were on the same floor, and indeed on the same passage. The best rooms were all on the left-hand side, and going in. For these were the only ones to have windows, deep-set round windows looking over his garden, and meadows beyond, sloping down to the river. This hobbit was a very well-to-do hobbit, and his name was Baggins. The Baggins had lived in the neighborhood of the hill for time out of mind, and people considered them very respectable. Not only because most of them were rich, but also because they never had any adventures or did anything unexpected.
Losing the accent. Come on.
You could tell what the Baggins would say on any question without the bother of asking him. This is a story of how a Baggins had an adventure and found himself doing insane things altogether.
Yes. Keep reading. Not done.
He may have lost the neighbor's respect, but in the end he gained well. You will see whether he gained anything in the end. The mother of our particular hobbit. What is a hobbit? I suppose hobbits need some description nowadays, since they have become rare and shy of the big people. As they call us, they are, or were, a little people, about half our height and smaller than the bearded dwarves. Hobbits have no beards.
He's got a pocket watch.
There is no magic about them, except the ordinary, everyday sort, which helps them to disappear quickly and quietly when large, stupid folk like you and me come blundering along, making a noise like elephants, which they can hear a mile off. They are inclined to be fat in the stomach. They dress in bright colors, chiefly green and yellow, wear no shoes, and because their feet grow natural,
Green and yellow.
leathery soles, and thick warm brown hair like the stuff on their heads, which is curly. Have long, clever brown fingers, good-natured faces, and laugh deep, fruity laughs, especially after dinner, which they have twice a day when they can get it. Now you know enough to go on with. As I was saying, the mother of the hobbit of Bilbo Baggins, that is, was the famous Belladonna, took one of the three remarkable daughters of the old Took, head of the hobbits, who lived across the water and small river that ran at the foot of the hill. It was often said in other families that long ago one of the Took ancestors must have taken a fairy wife. That was, of course, absurd, but certainly there was still something not entirely Hobbit-like about them. And once in a while, members of the Took clan would go and have adventures. They discreetly disappeared, and the family hushed it up. But the fact they discreetly disappeared and the family hunched up, but the fact remained that the Tooks were not respectable as the Baggins thought they were undoubtedly richer. Not that Belladonna took every and had any adventures after she became Mrs. Bungo Baggins. Bungo, that was Bilbo's father, built the most luxurious hobbit hole for her, and partly with her money that was to be found either under the hill or over the hill or across the water, and there they remained to the end of their days. Still, it is probable that Bilbo, her only son, thought he looked and behaved exactly like a second edition of his solid and comfortable father. Got something a bit queer on his makeup from the Took side, something that only waited for a chance to come out. The chance never arrived, until Bilbo Baggins was grown up. Being about 50 years old or so, and living in the beautiful hobbit hole built by his father, which I describe for you now, until he had in fact apparently settled down immovably. By some curious chance, one morning, long ago in the quiet of the world, there was less noise and more green, and the hobbits were still numerous and prosperous, and Bilbo Baggins was standing at his door after breakfast smoking an enormous long wooden pipe that reached nearly down to his woolly toes. Neatly brewed, Gandalf came by. Gandalf! If you had heard only a quarter of what I have heard about him, and I have only heard very little of what there is to hear, you would be prepared for any sort of remarkable tale, and tales and adventures sprouted up all over the place where he went. In the most extraordinary fashion, he had not been down the way under the hill for ages and ages. Not since his friend the old Took died, and in fact the hobbits had almost forgotten what he had looked like. He had been way over the hill and across the water on business of his own since they were all small hobbit boys and hobbit girls. All of that unsuspecting Bilbo saw that morning was an old man with a staff. He had a tall pointed blue hat, a long grey cloak, a silver scarf over which his long white beard hung down below his waist, and immense black boots. "Good morning," said Bilbo, and he meant it. The sun was shining, the grass was very green, but Gandalf looked at him from the long, bushy eyebrows that stuck out further than the brim of his shady hat. "What do you mean?" he said. "Do you wish me a good morning? Or mean that is a good morning whether I want it or not? Or that you feel good this morning? Or that it is a morning to be good?" "All of them at once," said Bilbo. "And a very fine morning for a pipe of tobacco out of the doors, into the bargain. If you have a pipe about you, sit down and have a fill of mine. There's no hurry. We have all day before us." Then Bilbo sat down on a seat by his door, crossed his legs, and blew out a beautiful grey ring of smoke that sailed up in the air without breaking and floated away over the hill. "Very pretty," said Gandalf, "but I have no time to blow smoke rings. I have to get to the chopper!"
Change your voice. You gotta oh, no, he didn't say that.
And that concludes today's reading. Thank you.